Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting installment of Thursday Night Bible Study. We've been working through the life of David forever, mostly since David has been alive. The last time we were together, which feels like it was ages and ages ago, it's just two Thursdays ago, we talked about the end of Saul's line of heirs. Three of his sons were killed with him in battle. The remaining son, Ishbosheth, was killed by some delusional supporters of David. They thought they'd be rewarded for eliminating the competition, and David came down on them pretty harshly for raising their hand against the king, in his name especially. And so that wrapped up 2 Samuel chapter 4. We're going to start this evening in 2 Samuel 5 and then make a big jump. Okay? So let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 5. And we'll read just the first 5 verses for now. All the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns. And the Lord said to you, 'You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their leader, their ruler.'" When all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, the king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem, he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. So let's talk about that. So, after quite some time, God's promise to David finally comes true. David has now been king over the tribe of Judah in Hebron for a few years. How long?
7 years.
7.5 years. And then General Abner came from Saul's administration from across the Jordan River. He came to David and had been trying to turn support from the rest of Israel to David's reign before he was murdered by Joab a chapter 2 or 3 ago. So when chapter 5 opens, the direction of the people is all Israel is coming to David at Hebron. Now clearly, this is not everybody in the land of Israel coming to Hebron to see David. It is the elders, the leaders, the rulers of each one of the tribes, the local chiefs. You might call them a sheikh. In a Middle Eastern world. But these tribal leaders have come to Hebron, and as they talk with the king, they point out a few important bits of information. First, they mention that they have a shared heritage. We're flesh and blood. You're Israelite just like we are. They point to his success as one of Israel's great military heroes. Under Saul, David was a great, successful military commander. And they also mention the Lord's call to David to rule over Israel as king. So they're kind of pointing to 3 very important things. You are a real Jew, and you have been a great hero, and God said you're going to be the leader anyway, so we're going to go ahead and be good with that. We're going to follow what's laid out here. So he is then finally anointed as the king of the whole nation of Israel. finally, there in Hebron, he makes a covenant with the people. That's something that he says that it's done before the Lord. So there is also a religious or spiritual component to David's becoming the king. This is not just a political deal. This is not just a civics lesson. There is a covenant made with the people of Israel before God. The covenant probably includes some of the obligations that David is looking for from the people. If I'm going to be your king, here's what I will expect. And as well as, if I'm going to be your king, here's what you can expect from me. I suppose it might sound maybe a little like an inauguration speech. Here are the things that have happened. Here's what we're going to do in the days ahead. I think it's important to note that there in the text it mentions that he is shepherd and ruler. Oh, I just lost that again. You will shepherd my people, you will become their ruler. Okay, David is well accustomed to being a shepherd. That was how he was brought up. He knows all about what that means. Providing for the flock, protecting the flock, leading the flock, correcting the flock, medicating the flock, healing. I mean, there's all kinds of things involved in leading people or in leading sheep, and that's going to help him as he tries to lead God's people as well. Is there anything else about that covenant I wanted to say? No, other than now at Hebron, David finally takes the throne that was promised to him in Bethlehem by the Lord through the prophet Samuel, which was probably 20 years earlier. Now, I think that there's probably a lesson for us in that. Most of the time, it's possible that we may think, well, God made me this promise. He said it's going to happen, so where is it? Well, sometimes it might take 20 years for it to happen. All those prayers that you pray for your kids, or your grandkids, or your spouse, or your parents, all those things, and God has said, don't worry about it. I've got it under control. It may take a generation for it to occur. You just like David, you just keep being faithful. You trust him. You honor him. You worship him, and he'll bring it around when it's just the right time. If you need something to grab a hold of today, a little application, I think that's a good one. Okay, the text tells us that that David ruled at Hebron for 7.5 years, and that he's going to reign overall for 40 years. If we do the math frontwards and backwards, David is probably around 37-ish. If we think he was 16 or 17 when he was anointed in Bethlehem, and it's been 20 years or so, he's probably about 37. And if that's the case, when he is an old man and dies as the king of Israel, he's probably a little north of 70, maybe 71 or 72 years old. So that is 2 Samuel 5, 1 through 5. Now, this is an appropriate time to jump to another portion of the Old Testament for a little bit different perspective on what has been taking place. So we're going to be done with 2 Samuel 5. If you will turn to the right to find 1 Chronicles. We need 1 Chronicles 11. The heading in the NIV is that David becomes king over Israel, but chapters 11 and 12 are really, the majority of it is really a flashback of some of David's recent history, in order to give us a better understanding of the situation as David does become the king over a united Israelite nation. So, 1 Chronicles 11, verses 1 through 3 will probably sound very familiar. All Israel came together to David at Hebron and said, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, even while Saul was king, you were the one who led Israel on their military campaigns, and the Lord your God said to you, 'You will shepherd my people Israel, and you will become their ruler.'" Sounds vaguely familiar. When all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, he made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel, as the Lord had promised through Samuel. Yes, ma'am.
Why is it repeating itself?
Okay, so the writer of 1st and 2nd Chronicles is going back. It's written at a much later time than 1st and 2nd Samuel and 1st and 2nd Kings. Chronicles is being written more during or after the exile of the Jews to Babylon. And so the Chronicles are pointing the much later Jews back to their own history to show sort of a different perspective. In 1st Chronicles, there's not a lot of information about Saul and all of the gory details about the way he has been. You can read 1 Chronicles 10 on your own later, and it's pretty quick summary of Saul's behavior. But here the focus is more on bringing all of Israel together again. They're focused on the fact that God has placed David in just the right time and place at just the right time and place. So some of it is almost verbatim. A lot of this was almost word for word, but there will be some subtle differences. Plus, there's information that we're going to see tonight that isn't listed anywhere else. So, I mean, it's like taking a part of the president's speech from 2020, going over the inaugural address, but then, that's the end of the similarities. We're going off into some other aspect of his administration or military life or whatever. So I think it's actually kind of nice to see that over the span of at least a few hundred years that the text really doesn't change. We can kind of trust and verify that it's true. So 1 through 3 are essentially the same as 1 through 3 in 2 Samuel 5. We're going to stay here in Chronicles, but we're going to skip over verses 4 through 9. So just pretend like they're not even there. Again, the perspective of this author is he's got a little bit more creative eye. He does things in what's called chiasm. chiasm. That's from the Greek letter chi, which looks like an X. So what he's doing is he's going down this way and then he's coming back out of it in like pairs. So I'm not going to do that to you, but we're going to skip over the first part of this X. Go down to verse 10. These were the chiefs of David's mighty warriors. They, together with all Israel, gave his kingship strong support to extend it over the whole land as the Lord had promised. This is the list of David's mighty warriors. Okay, so what we're going to see in the next 2 chapters in 1 Chronicles is where David's support came from and what the effect of all of that support is going to be. I've always kind of liked this list, some of the descriptions of the men who had come to support David. That may be evident as we go along. There's some fairly impressive dudes in this list. They make Marines look like, busboys. They're pretty hairy, scary guys. Okay. And if I stumble over names, if you laugh, you'll get to take care of them on your own. So, all right. The list of David's mighty warriors. Jashobeam, a Hakmonite, was chief of the officers. He raised his spear against 300 men, whom he killed in one encounter. Next to him was Eleazar, son of Dodai the Ahohite, one of the 3 mighty warriors. He was with David at Pasdamim when the Philistines gathered there for battle. At a place where there was a field full of barley, the troops fled from the Philistines, but they, David and Eleazar, stood there, took their stand in the middle of the field. They defended it and struck the Philistines down, and the Lord brought about a great victory. 3 of the 30 chiefs came down to David to the rock at the cave of Adullam, while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. At that time, David was in the stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was at Bethlehem. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." So the 3 broke through the Philistine lines, drew water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem, and carried it back to David. But he refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out to the Lord. "God forbid that I should do this," he said. "Should I drink the blood of these men who went at the risk of their lives?" Because they risked their lives to bring it back, David would not drink it. Such were the exploits of the 3 mighty warriors. Abishai, the brother of Joab, was chief of the 3. He raised his spear against 300 men, whom he killed. That's approximately 300 more than I have killed in my life. And he became as famous as the 3. He was doubly honored above the 3 and became their commander, even though he was not included among them. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, a valiant fighter from Kabzeel, performed great exploits. He struck down Moab's 2 mightiest warriors. He also went down, this is a great descriptive phrase, he also went down in a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. And he struck down an Egyptian who was about 5 cubits tall. That's about 7.5 feet. Although the Egyptian had a spear like a weaver's rod in his hand, Benaiah went against him with a club. He snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. Such were the exploits of Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. He too was as famous as the 3 mighty warriors. He was held in greater honor than any of the 30, but he was not included among the 3. And David put him in charge of his bodyguard. Verses 10 to 25 that we looked at just there give us some insight into the warriors who had been with David. This is not really just like a list of soldiers, although it is a list of soldiers. It helps us understand the very broad appeal and support that David would find as the king of Israel. And so we learn about the men who were closest to David. And they had been with him. If they were with him in the stronghold, it means that they had been with him essentially since before Saul started hunting him down. So they've been with him for a while.
So if David was 30 here, when they were talking about it in 2 Samuel, how old was he when he was doing all the stuff with Saul? Was he in his teens?
Well, maybe very late teens, but probably in his early 20s. Okay. The first one we talk about is Jashobeam. I don't know how you say his name. who is called the chief of the officers. It says that he's a Hakmonite, which means he is a descendant of a guy named Hakmoni. He is awesome in battle. The next one is Eleazar, who is an Ahohite. He is awesome in battle. The next name is one that is hopefully a little familiar to you from verse 20. That name, Abishai, you probably remember that he is Joab's brother, which means that he is David's nephew. And Abishai and Joab are the ones who went after Abner and killed him because Abner had killed their brother Asahel in battle.
I need a flow chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they didn't
Maps and trees would be helpful. Abishai is called the commander of the three. There's another man named Benaiah. His exploits are awesome. He killed 2 Moabite warriors who were their best, most elite, most powerful warriors in the whole kingdom. It says that he followed a lion into a pit on a snowy day. You can kind of see him tracking the lion prints in the snow as he went down into it, and there's no place else to go. One of us is coming out of this pit alive, and it's not going to be you, Kat.
It says killing a lion in the ancient Near East made a person a hero.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Has it
right
got a picture?
now, if somebody killed a lion with their bare hands, I would think that they were a hero
Me
as
too.
well. You don't have to be an ancient Israelite to appreciate that.
Benaiah, one of David's mighty men, is described as a valiant fighter, and he also went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed him.
There was a book that was written a few years ago by a pretty well-known pastor, Mark Batterson, I think. The name of it is In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. Yeah, so, and then he also had killed the Egyptian champion, who kind of reminds us a little bit of Goliath because he's big, and he has this huge spear, and he ends up getting killed with his own spear as well. Now I'll say that all the references that we're going to see to the 3 and the 30 and commanders and captains and chiefs, that's all really kind of confusing. Even like super smart scholars who study this all the time, it's not exactly clear how it works. It could be that if you were one of the 3, that meant that you were like a part of a group that was sent out in a trio to carry out a mission. I suppose like being a Navy SEAL, but being assigned to a specific team, whatever they are, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, I don't know how it works. Everything I know about SEALs I know because of David Boreanaz. So, it could be that that it is a specific list of 3 men, which Jashobeam, maybe Abishai, although it says he's not listed. His name isn't one of the 3, but he's the commander of the 3. So they answer to him, maybe. There's another man listed in another place called Shammah in 2 Samuel 23. It's not exactly clear because we either have too many names or not enough names to make up 3. However many there are, and whatever it means, these men that we've talked about so far are incredibly fierce fighters. They are intensely loyal to David. They are the upper crust, the top echelon of David's warriors, trusted advisors, confidants, extremely successful soldiers. I mean, in any number of them has killed multiple people that should have killed them back. Okay. Any thoughts or questions before we roll on?
Okay, so Abishai is not one of the 3 mighty warriors. He's just their chief.
Right. But in some other places, he's kind of listed with them. So it's hard to know.
This has got Jashobeam, and then Eleazar, and then Eleazar's dad, Dode, as the three mighty warriors. And then it says Abishai is the brother of Joab, and he's the chief of the three, but then it says he was not included among them.
But he's always with them.
That's because he's their chief.
Well, maybe. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure how it works, because even when you read through other commentaries and they try to figure it out, a lot of these authors just say it's really not clear, because they're either too many names, like they talk about 6 men who are all a part of the three. Some of them are leaders, but they're not in the list, but they're always right there with them in the list. So are they considered as a part of it, or what? I mean, if you go to the office of the three, do they each have their own room with a nameplate on the door? How does it work? Okay, so yes, Joanne.
I don't know, but for some reason I can't get past the snowy day. I don't think it snowed in that time, and I always think of them as sandals. Did they carry boots too? How did they fight? And just one of those things that.
Well, I believe they would have had access to more clothes than just sandals and robes. They would have had the ability to, wrap up their legs and their feet in leather or cloth or, wooden-soled shoes. I mean, there have been lots of things available to them. But we don't typically think about there being a lot of snow in the Middle East. But it talks about snow in numerous places. There's typically snow up on the tops of the mountains there. And sometimes it does come down a little farther.
And it doesn't say when this happened. When and...
No, it just happened at some point in his life. He chased a lion down into a pit to kill it.
Yeah.
So.
And in this picture that they show, he's got on a long dress-like thing and leather boots up to his knees. And he's covered up with, I don't know.
Susan's Bible has leather boots in the picture.
In the picture.
Which maybe he got from the last lion that he killed.
Well, I don't know if they're leather, but, some kind of...
Right. Skin.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like he's dressed, but he doesn't look like he's dressed for winter.
It's just one of those awful things. Having just gone through the Old Testament listening, for some reason, that description in that snow just caught me. I didn't recall hearing it prior. It probably was, but that would just...
Oh, that happens all the time. I read something and think, I've studied this 5 or 6 times. I never remember seeing that before. That must be new. Somebody has just put that in there, because I never saw that.
Somebody scribbled that here for me.
All right, well, let's roll on here and get deeper in the weeds of all these crazy names and heritages. The mighty warriors were Asahel, the brother of Joab, Elhanan, son of Dodo from Bethlehem, Shamoth the Hararite, Helez the Pelonite, Ira, son of Ikash from Tekoa, Abiezer from Anathoth, Sibekal, or Kai, depending on how good your glasses are. I'll move this over here now. Sibekai the Hushathite, Eli the Ahohite, Maharai the Netophathite, Heled son of Baana the Netophathite, Ithai son of Ribai from Gibeah and Benjamin. Sorry, these names are cracking me up here. Yes, Susan.
So why are some of them...
weird names.
So it says the mighty warriors, and the first one is chapter 26, the one guy and then under him. Then 27 is the one guy and under him. And then the 28, why are they listed that way?
They just had to break it into verses.
Okay.
So they did them in pairs or
So these
trios.
guys aren't there like second in command?
No. This is just a list of people
Of the
that they
mighty
broke up
warriors.
after every pair to
Okay, all right.
they didn't put those verses in initially. That was an afterthought.
Oh.
Okay, where am I at? Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hurai from the ravines of Gaash, Abiel the Arbathite, Asmaveth the Bahurumite, Eliabah the Shalbonite, the sons of Hashem the Gizionite, Jonathan, son of Shaggy the Hararite. That's one of my favorites so far.
So why are they all, sorry,
Yes,
why are they all ITE?
that's where they're from. That's who they're descendants of,
Okay.
either a person's name or that's the region that they're from.
Okay.
Ahiam, son of Sakar the Hararite, Eliphal, son of Hefer the Mecharathite, Ahijah the Pelonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Naarai, son of Ezbai, Joel, the brother of Nathan, Mibhar, son of Hagri, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai the Berathite, the armor-bearer of Joab, son of Zeruiah, another Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Ariah the Hittite, Zabad, son of Ali, Adina, son of Shiza, the Reubenite, who was chief to the Reubenites, and the 30 with him, Hanan, son of Maacah, Joshaphat, the Mithnite, Uzziah, the Ashtorethite, Shema and Jael, the sons of Hotham, the Arawarite, Jediel, son of Shimri, his brother Joha, the Tizite, Eliel, the Mahavite, Jerubai and Joshaviah. Now that's a name that should be in Utah right there. Joshaviah, the sons of Elnaam, Ithma the Moabite, Eliel, Obed, and Jaasiel the Mesobite.
Yay, that was
You need
good.
a drink now.
That was good.
Now,
Is there a test gonna be on these?
yeah, you have to match them up. I hope you're paying attention. So in 26 to 47, we get a listing of some more of David's trusted warriors. So we've seen the upper crust, the closest and the best and the strongest and the fastest and the most trusted. This group that we've just read through, these are also incredibly impressive men. These are not your rank and file soldiers. They have distinguished themselves in some special kinds of ways. We should recognize the name Asahel in verse 26. That's the guy who got killed by Abner, Joab and Abishai's brother. So that tells us that this list goes back long before Hebron, probably back before Ziklag, and maybe to the desert time in the wilderness for David. There's another name from verse 41 that we might recognize. Uriah the Hittite.
Comes later.
Yes, we'll read some more about Uriah in several chapters, but his wife's name is Bathsheba.
The Bathsheba?
Yes, Bathsheba of the Jerusalem Bathshebas. Yeah. Which makes that story even more heinous, because not only is he a soldier, but he's like one of the best, one of the most devoted, and David sticks that dude out there on the front line where he knows he will go without question and gets him killed. Yeah. All right. Now, probably the most significant feature of this list is that that there is so much variety in backgrounds. They're from different tribes. They're from different locations. Some of them are even from different nations. Like if you're a Hittite, you're not an Israelite. You're a Canaanite who has lived in the land a long time, but you aren't one of God's people. But they had so much respect for David that they came and joined him.
And I bet there were a lot of different ages.
Oh, I'm assuming this is not all 19-year-olds. This is a wide variety here. They are intensely devoted to him, and again, it's more than just fellow men from Judah, David's own tribe. He has very broad regional support from all over the whole nation of Israel, and he's surrounded himself with powerful, devoted, great, heroic men. They're not just soldiers. They are his brothers in arms. They are closer than some of his own family. These men are part of what makes David great.
I like the next part of, I like 12:1, what it says there.
So you're ready to move ahead then? Is that what you're saying, Susan?
I don't read the end of the book before I read the first. I just was reading that next part and I went,
Okay, well, before
that
we move
makes
on
you-
to the next part, we have to go back.
that makes you say, oh wow, though.
We skipped over a cool story there.
Okay.
Well, I read through it, but we didn't really talk about it. In verse 15, at the time that David was in the stronghold, the Philistines were camped out at Bethlehem, his own homeland. And in passing, it would seem, David said, man, I sure wish I had a drink from that well at Bethlehem. That water was so good. I'd give anything to have a drink for that. And so, 3 of these men, again, a random 3 of the 30, or is it the 3, whoever they are? Any of them would have done it, but 3 of them go off. They fight their way through the Philistine lines. They fill up a jug of water, and they bring it back and said, all right, boss, here you go. And we look at his response like, oh, I can't drink that. That cost you all. It could have cost you your lives. There is no end to the value of this water. I cannot drink it. And so it might seem sort of like cold-hearted and unfeeling, but he takes that water that they fought so hard for and he pours it out on the ground. Now, he's not just dumping it like, those dumb guys, why you do that? You're in trouble. No, it's more like, what you all have done is such a beautiful and powerful and meaningful thing. I have truly been blessed by God to have men who will do that. It is too precious. I cannot drink this alone. All I can do is offer this up to God. He's honoring them for their loyalty and their dedication. Again, it might seem kind of crazy, and I wish there was a couple of sentences there about what the guys did. I'm like, you kidding me? You just poured that out? Do you know I got a bandage? I got an injury. I sort of wish that there was a little more detail there.
So we're not supposed to really get that, because when you were reading that, I get it, why you did that. We're not supposed to get why you did it.
This expression of loyalty and devotion is beyond words. There is nothing that he can do. He could not enjoy drinking that, knowing that those men had put their lives on the line for this probably offhand, frivolous remark. Like, boy, I sure wish I had a Stromboli from the Pizza King in Winnemac, and you all get on a plane, or you start out in your hand cart across the prairie to bring it back for me. How could I possibly ever eat that sandwich? That's just gonna do it. But if you ever happen to be in Winnemac, Indiana, and you run across the Stromboli guy at Pizza King, please bring one back. All right. So that brings us to 1 Chronicles 12. Let's look at 1 Chronicles 12, verse 1.
That. That sounds like a really good idea.
If I can get there again. These were the men who came to David at Ziklag while he was banished from the presence of Saul, son of Kish. They were among the warriors who helped him in battle. They were armed with bows and were able to shoot arrows or to sling stones right-handed or left-handed. They were relatives of Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, so far, it seems like many of the men that we've already read about were with David through Saul's relentless pursuit of David through the wilderness. And it's possible, my own perspective is, that they probably, a lot of them joined him, or were with him anyway, at the stronghold, which I kind of feel is Masada, down by the Dead Sea, close to En Gedi.
That's where I want to go with you.
One of the places that I'm hoping to visit on this trip. We're supposed to go to En Gedi and to Masada. So anyway, in chapter 12, we see that even more men joined him at Ziklag, which is like the next part. David got pursued to Masada, then Saul left for a while. David and his men took off for the Philistines. They hung out with them for a while. They said, why don't you go to Ziklag and kind of help us out? He took care of raiders and bandits down there while he was really kind of helping himself, as well as doing things to help out the nation of Israel, sort of on the down low. So this is like the next big chapter of David's life. And so we, even more men, specifically men from the north, came to join him. Verses 3 to 7 give us a list of them. We'll stumble through some of those names again here. Ahiezer, their chief, and Joash, the sons of Shammah, the Gibeathite, Jeziel and Pelet, the sons of Asmaveth, Barakah, Jehu, the Anathothite, and Ishmaiah, the Gibeonite, a mighty warrior among the 30, who was the leader of the 30. Jeremiah, finally a name we can deal with. Jahaziel, Johanan, Jozabad, the Gederathite, Eluzai, Jeremoth, Bealiah, Shemaiah, and Shephatiah, the Heraphite, Elkanah, Ishia, Azarel, Joezer, and Jashobeam, the Korahites, and Joelah and Zebediah, the sons of Jehoram from Gedor. Jeroham, from Gedor. So, several of those people are from the tribe of Benjamin. And why is that significant?
Saul's tribe.
King Saul is from Benjamin. He's their cousin, their clansman, their fellow tribesmen. These men had chosen to leave Saul to follow David. And their skill in battle and their ability to fight from either hand is specifically mentioned. They're not just good with one hand, but they can kill people with both hands. They can sling stones, two at a time, to get them going. Okay, kind of like to see that. Then verses 8 to 15 covers some men from another tribe's region, from Gad, from the east side of the Jordan. So again, just kind of a quick review here. So along the Levant here, you've got the tribe of Judah. Here's Hebron. Ziklag is over down here. There's one other tribe farther south in Simeon, but each one of the other tribes has their own territory. Gad is from the east side of the Jordan River. Between Gad and Manasseh, that's where Saul's son Ishbosheth had his capital after Abner made him the king. And you've got people all the way up from Dan at the very far north on down. What we're going to see is that people really do come from all over the Promised Land to follow David. These men from Gad are described as brave warriors. They have faces like lions, and they are swift as gazelles. Maybe they've got really cool facial hair, big manes. But probably that has more to do with the fact that they're just really strong and courageous people. Lions have been a symbol of courage and strength since forever. Okay, and gazelles are obviously really fast. In verses 14 and 15, it tells us that they're really skilled fighters and commanders of fighters, and they're not even afraid of winter flood runoff. They crossed the river in the scariest, coldest, rushing floods without hesitation. In the next chunk of verses from, let's see here. Oh, I stopped too far. Did I? No. No, my face is doing weird things. My Bible's doing weird things. I don't know. Those numbers are too small. Some Gadites defected to David as stronghold in the wilderness. They were brave warriors. Faces were the faces of lions and swift as gazelles in the mountains. Ezer was the chief, Obadiah the second in command, Eliab the third, Mishmanah the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, and Machbanai, the 11th. These Gads were army commanders. The least was a match for 100. That's pretty impressive. And the greatest for 1,000. It was they who crossed the Jordan in the first month when it was overflowing all its banks, and they put to flight everyone living in the valleys to the east and to the west. Going on, verse 16. Other Benjamites and some men from Judah also came to David in his stronghold. David went out to meet them and said to them, "If you have come to me in peace to help me, I'm ready for you to join me. But if you have come here to betray me to my enemies when my hands are free from violence, may the God of our ancestors see it and judge you." Then the Spirit came on Amasai, chief of the 30, and he said, "We are yours, David. We are with you, son of Jesse. Success to you and success to those who help you, for your God will help you." So David received them and made them leaders of his raiding bands. Okay, this is not in my notes. I just remember reading it while I was getting stuff ready. The letters E-Z-E-R or A-Z-E-R in Hebrew mean help. If you look back at the list of the men whose names we've read so far, a lot of them are like Eleazar or Eliezer or something Azer, over and over again. It's kind of interesting that you've got all these men who, as a part of their name, have help. And that's what gets noted here by Amasai here. We are here to help. May there be success on those who help you. We know God will help you. Help. David has got some good help from heaven and from people from all over the nation. Okay, so the rest of 1 Chronicles 12 details the numbers of warriors who came from each one of the 12 tribes to stand with him. I'm not going to read all of that. We should be in about verse 20 something. 20, yeah. These are the numbers of the men armed for battle who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him as the Lord had said. Okay, so then we go through. Judah, 6,800. Simeon, 7,100. Levi, 3,700. Benjamin, 3,000. Ephraim, 20,800. Manasseh, 18,000. Issachar, 200. Although there's a special note about those people. It's not a very big group, but there's something special. Chiefs with all their relatives under their command, so it could be lots more. Zebulun, 50,000. Naphtali, 38,000. Dan, 28,600. Asher, 40,000. And Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, that's everybody on this side of the Jordan, 120,000.
Were there that many people alive back then?
There must have been.
Go back to Levi. Levi, I have 46 in
That's
there.
what I had too.
You said 36?
Yeah, I could have
There's
written it down
36
wrong.
that are Aaron's, Aaron's family, 37.
Yeah.
46 total.
Yeah.
I
See, I
just
missed that
didn't-
when I was taking my notes now.
I just didn't know there were that many people alive back then.
There's a
I
lot of
don't know
them.
why I didn't think that.
There are thousands and thousands of Israelites scattered all over the territory there. The total number is well over 330,000 men.
All volunteers.
All volunteers, all there because they love David, they trust David, and they want him to be the king. Now, I suppose what's probably most interesting to me anyway is that you would think that David in Hebron, in the middle of his homeland, that the tribe of Judah would probably have the biggest number. But that is not the case at all. Actually, their number is kind of puny compared to some of the rest. Now, it could be that there's already a pretty significant number of men who have come from the tribe of Judah to follow David, and this is just a new batch of guys. But what it appears to be true is that the farther away you are geographically from Judah, the chances are your number is a lot greater. Oh, Joanne, I'm probably going to lose you. My computer's going to die. So if I do, I didn't turn it off. It just died on its own.
It's just a couple more hours on the psychiatrist now.
I know. Just put it on my tab. Okay. So some of these that are like Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, they're over on the far side of the Dead Sea and the river, and they've got 120,000 men who come to David. So to try to mash all this together, what's the point of this? Who actually cares? And what's more important is that not the numbers of men or their names, but where they've come from. Verse 22 sort of underscores the point. Verse 22 says, day after day, men came to help David until he had a great army, like the army of God. Day by day, men are coming to David from all over the territory. In chapter 11 and chapter 12, 11 different times the author uses the phrase, we're coming to David. They were coming to David. The elders came to David. The men from Manasseh came over and over again. And I think that is a very intentional thing, that it is obvious that the point is the whole nation supports David as the king. This is not just Judah pushing their homeboy up to the front of the line so he can be their king and represent them. This is men, thousands and thousands of men from all over the nation who have come. Whether David is actively pursuing this or not, he has assembled a fighting force of incredibly loyal supporters from all over Israel. There is unity. It's gonna happen, Joanne. I'm gonna be sorry. There is unity and there is deep solidarity among God's people for God's anointed king. Verse 38 says, all these were fighting men who volunteered to serve in the ranks. They came to Hebron fully determined to make David king over all Israel. All the rest of the Israelites were also of one mind to make David king. The men spent 3 days there with David, eating and drinking, for their families had supplied provisions for them. Also their neighbors from as far away as Issachar, Zebulun, and Naphtali came bringing food on donkeys, camels, mule, and oxen. There were plentiful supplies of flour, fig cakes, raisin cakes, wine, olive oil, cattle, and sheep, for there was joy in Israel. Okay, one mind, unified in solidarity. David, you should be the king. We're going to make you the king. We're all here to support you. And so for 3 days, the new king of all of Israel is celebrated with a royal feast with people and food from all over the nation. It seems like the optics of it is, with King David, there is plenty. There is joy, there is celebration of God's blessing and anointing, especially after all the doom and gloom and despair of wackadoodle old crazy King Saul. This feels like a whole new deal. There is joy for God's people. Okay?
This king that brought them all together.
And that they were excited to have. Okay? I got really excited doing all the work for this week. I had planned to go a different direction. But once I got into it, it's like, I love all these mighty men, what they're willing to do for David, the support that they show, the loyalty and devotion that they show. They love the Lord and they love the Lord's anointed, and they will do whatever it takes to keep him in power on the throne. Now, we will pick up again next time with, we should be going back, I believe, to 2 Samuel 5 to pick up. We had to kind of do all this to show how it's possible that now David has become the king of all of Israel. Now he has to have a capital for all of Israel, which is what we'll pick up when we get to 2 Samuel 5 again next Thursday. All right? Very good. Any parting shots, questions, commentary?
They must have trusted and believed in him with everything with all they had. Trusted and believed in David and what they were shown to do, without question.
It's a new day in Israel, a good day. David is going to make Israel great again. Sorry, I threw that in there. Cody's not even here.
I'm not saying a word.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera. We will see you all next time. Feel free to go back and watch it again. It was awesome.